as we said, I kind of initially planned it based on... I actually used real live chart for UK airspace rather than a computerised thing. I've actually flown quite a bit around this area. I used to be based at Culdrose, and I did some time at Yeovilton, and all over the place. So we'll see just how good FTX England is. But the route as we've got it is departing Exeter, and the wind is from the east, so we'll be departing out. What's the runway on Exeter for east?
079, I think, something like that.
079. So 08 we're talking then.
Yep.
So it's runway 08, departing out to the east. First turn point is Exeter, the NDB, on 337. And then we're going to turn left. That's climbing initially to 1,000 feet. I doubt it's 4.6 miles, so I doubt if we'll have a problem getting to that altitude. But continuing the climb towards waypoint 1, which is Bridgewater, which is just up towards the coast, directly south of Burnham-on-Sea. That's a short 8-minute jaunt to get to there, then travelling north to Newport. And this is
Actually, that's a good point, Rich. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you there, but I noticed that Bridgewater itself is under this area, which says training 2,000 to 5,000, Yeovilton. So are we forbidden from entering there above 2,000 feet, or...?
Yeovilton does have a LAR service, lower airspace radar service. You can get a radar service from them, but it's not controlled airspace at all. So I know in terms of the UK, you've got ATZs and MATs, the military air traffic zones. Technically, the MATs, you don't have to abide by them in the UK as a civilian aircraft. You only have to abide by the ATZ. But considering it contains fast jets and all sorts, it's probably a good idea to, as part of the training for PPLs, they obviously do MATS penetrations. But yeah, the training, this thing is riddled with training areas. There's an air-to-air refueling area, Area 10, starts at 8,000 feet. And that's in open airspace. That's Class G airspace.
Yeah,
that's the same thing with where we're going with this. As you go from Bridgewater north, although it's got the training area for Yeovilton, it is open Class G airspace, so there's no restrictions on us using it. The only thing, obviously, it's marked on the map so that if for whatever reason we wanted to liaise with its controlling authority, it would be Yeovilton we'd need to talk to. So that's the only real significance there. So, yeah, given what we're doing today, there's no real issues with that. But in terms of that leg, we're pretty much paralleling the M5 for the second half of it, so hopefully FTX England has that.
Yep. Then
we head north, following the coastline. Now, with Bristol on the right, with its ATZ, and with Cardiff on the left with its ATZ, the route goes straight up between the two, but it's literally got half a mile, maybe to a mile, I suppose, between the route and the western boundary of the ATZ. Well, it's the Panhandle, so it probably starts at probably, I think, 1,500. No, 1,000, I think it is, isn't it, for a Panhandle? But if we track to the west of the coastline as we go up past Burnham-on-Sea, continue that track, that should take us plumb between the two. And likewise, I think you said that when we go up to Newport, the inlet is quite clear to see.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So we can use that as a reference. So using that north-south coastline by Burnham-on-Sea should set us up nicely for going straight between those two bits of controlled airspace.
Yep.
And then on to Newport. When we get to Newport, hang a right. What I need to point out actually is that the altitude for doing most of that is going to be something I've removed from my...
About 2,500, wasn't it?
I think it was 2,500 for most of it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When we changed the flight plan, I've not changed it. So Newport, we'd said 2,500 for that, hadn't we?
Actually, that's for Daventry at 2,500. But I think you're right. Pretty much we can climb to 2,500 as we depart Exeter and remain there until theoretically, till we get to Daventry.
Yep, that sounds good to me. So yeah, in terms of continuing the route, Newport to Gloucester, going to track inbound on the Gloucester NDB, which will be tracking inbound.
Actually, that's another interesting point there, though, Rich, because the Gloucester NDB is a short-range NDB, and we won't pick it up when we dial it in from Newport. So are we going to do some dead reckoning then, and then track it as we get closer, or what do we do?
It's 35.9 miles, and I'm not sure what the range is on it, because without getting the AIP out with the massive list of beacon ranges, it would be impossible. My guess is that we're probably going to be able to pick it up with FSX anyway. I don't know how well it simulates the range of beacons. However, what we have got is we've got the estuary running to the southeast of our route. So if we parallel the estuary, and we've got the A48 as well, that should take us straight up to Gloucester.
Yeah.
So in effect, we can dead reckon it by hanging a right at Newport and following the northern coast of the estuary all the way up. Now FTX is quite good with that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean the only thing to be aware of is to the southern side of the estuary there's two restricted areas for Oldbury and Berkeley.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're for actually.
I don't either actually. Surface to 2000.
Don't know. They're orange, so they can't be that bad.
Yeah, they're not as big as a red, so clearly not that important.
Red's bad. Gloucester NDB, outbound from the Gloucester NDB towards Daventry on 069. Two choices there. We can track outbound on the NDB, or we can track inbound to Daventry. Daventry is a VOR used for a lot of Class A airway navigation, so the range on that is going to be mahoosive.
Yeah, I think it's at 195 miles, I think.
Yeah, we shouldn't have any problems with the Daventry. And then into Coventry. We discussed this earlier. Now, we're not flying IFR.
Right.
Technically, as VFR, we could pretty much do anything we want. As long as we stay below, just to the southeast of Honolly Beacon, Hotel Oscar November, that sort of curvy, archy bit of airspace, the base of that's 1,500 feet. So technically there's no reason why we can't fly VFR straight from Daventry to join a base leg for 05 straight into Coventry. And in reality that's one of the things I've done an awful lot.
Right.
And if you look about just over halfway between the two on the right-hand side, this is visible in FTX England, is the reservoir on the right-hand side. You can see it's got a VRP reporting point.
Draycott Water, is that the one?
It's quite large.
Okay.
Quite visible, but that's normally a joining point. So when you do your general handling out of Coventry, you'll come out to the west over the top of Rugby, and then when you rejoin, you'll generally go via the Draycott Water. It's not an official join, but it's, if you like, it's a VRP, I think, that's commonly used. Just so that pilots can orientate themselves, and obviously what it means is that in effect you're joining from a direction where you're not going to impede the Birmingham zone. But what we're going to do is go Daventry. We're actually going to go out an outbound radial from Daventry of 285 as if we were doing the procedural ILS approach from Daventry arrival. Normally we'd be not below 2,200 till we get 6 miles away from Daventry, and then normally would be not below 1,800. The problem here is we're VFR, we're not in controlled airspace, and the base of the controlled airspace is 1,500. So what we're going to kind of do is use radio navigation from the Daventry beacon and the Coventry ILS.
Okay.
Track, but make sure we remain below the controlled airspace. So as a result, we're not instrument flying per se. We are doing VFR flying, but using instruments for our actual navigation, our lateral navigation. And the only thing we've got to do is we've just got to make sure that by the time we get to just shy of Warwick, that we are down to 1,500 feet or below, so we don't bust that airspace.
Got it.
And really, I think that's it would be a whole different world to go into this and do full-on IFR, because I think this airspace is very congested. But what we're doing is very short legs, and the altitude changes that we would be going through in this aircraft would be quite marked for the type of aircraft it is. So I think unless you've got anything other in terms of the route, that for me is a goer.
I completely agree. That sounds all good to me.
So I've got the altitudes as 2,500 feet for everything except that last leg between Daventry and Coventry, which I've got descending to 1,400 feet.
Concur.
That sounds like we agree.
Yeah, you don't use the word agree. Everybody knows what that means. We have to use a very important word because we're pilots.
Oh God, that's made me chuckle.
That's not going to survive the edit.
Those things. There's a very common joke goes around where it's like, how do you know there's a pilot in the room? You don't need to worry about it. He'll tell you.
Yeah, I can identify with that. Good. Okay, so
I'm good to go. I'm happy with the route. So, can I suggest we jump into the aircraft?
Let's.